Okay, so today's talk is on pride. Our culture seems ambivalent about the value of having pride. While the Bible has, pride cometh before the fall, as many of you know, phrases such as black pride or gay pride show respect for having pride. Parents likewise can be proud of their children. In Buddhism, though, pride is considered a type of ignorance. Like avarice and aversion, ignorance is one of the three hindrances said to prevent us from realizing our true nature. Pride is related to ignorance because pride gets called on to ignorantly protect a self that fundamentally doesn't exist, nothing being permanent. An example of acting out of pride is taking offense when someone is thought to be disrespecting us. The perception that our sense of self is under attack can in turn trigger anger and thereby get us further into trouble. Pride also appears not when we are doing something, but when we are looking back and praising ourselves for what we have done. Until that afterthought, we probably were not thinking about self. Such pride illustrates well our identification with our self-centered self. For instance, while we may not be especially happy with ourselves when brushing our teeth, we could feel ourselves proud of our whiteness, their whiteness in the mirror. Another innocuous instance of feeling pride would be being pleased with how we look before heading out to a party. Such prideful thoughts are less a problem for those living life as bodhisattvas and doing things one after another for others. The reason for bodhisattvas' lack of concern for pride is that everything they do for others, in not being done for themselves, is of equal value to them. However, if bodhisattvas did take care of others merely to be able to pat themselves on the back, this would be taking pride in what they have done, which makes it all about the self. As time passes, what bodhisattvas also find is that the self needn't be involved in all that is happening if they are helping. Even if thoughts of self occur, it is enough to be aware of them. Trungpa Rinpoche pointed out that the precepts deal with our actions, not with our thoughts. We cannot stop thinking, nor should we try to, but thoughts not acted upon tend to soon not be there. We experience this in Zazen, of course. Moreover, without thoughts, how can there be a self either, if the self is a concept, a mere collection of thoughts? That there isn't a self isn't the problem either, if we aren't attached to thinking that there is. Without attachment to this self, pride has no way to get in the way. A little short today, but thank you. Let's get Jane over here. Oh, I have to go towards Jane here. Anybody have any comments or questions? Sandy?
When you said you were talking about bodhisattvas helping others and not actually getting not actually getting anything to be prideful about. It seems so when you help others, something does come back to you. It's not necessarily prideful, but it seems like there's a sense of, I'm not sure exactly how to describe it. That's the thing. It's like it's the way things should be done. It's just, it's as though selfishness has been taken away from the equation of it. That it's the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That type of experience, rather than going out and helping someone expecting something back. So it's, to me, it seems like that's a way to live rather than something to do. I don't know how, I'm probably explaining myself poorly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's right. I don't know about to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, in itself has a certain little bit of self in there. I think, as you would have them do unto you. You know, the Japanese they can't, I think, thought so, because they would equate it with give and take. You know, you watch my back, I'll watch your, kind of thing. So it's not done from, but certainly when I think what you said, you do get something back, and I think what that feeling is feeling natural.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
you were going towards that direction. Almost you almost said that without using those words. It's the natural thing to do.
Right.
Exactly.
It's the way life should be.
It's the
I'm
way.
sorry, Jane.
Well, yeah, it
And I
should
was
be.
just going to say it's responding appropriately where it was necessary. Perhaps that's
Right.
what she meant.
Yes. Plus, it's also, I think, the way life should be. We shouldn't be so focused on what we consider ourselves. We need to look at the world as all of us together, that that we're there for each other and we're part of each other, I think. And that if we view the world that way, then helping others just becomes natural,
Yes.
becomes a way to live.
Yeah. And should disappears, right?
And should,
Disappears.
yes. Yeah,
It should.
there's no should.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to do this. No, that's not going to be there anymore. If I relied on should, nothing would get done.
Anyone
Yeah.
else? Yes, John?
So the two, it would seem that as long as there is a delusion of self, there is pride.
Yes.
There's no way to separate the two. I can't still have some tethering to a self and not have pride.
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah, I think so.
Impossible thing, right?
Yeah. But at the basis of it is the self rather than the pride.
Right.
But yes, but they're part of the same team. That's for sure.
Team self.
Team self, right? Team self, yeah.
I think I'm echoing what he's saying. I think pride kind of naturally arises out of us when we're really trying to be selfless and everything. I think it's very ego clinging, and if we feel, let's say, subconsciously insecure, then it might, jump in there to kind of bolster us up, every so often. But I think the ego clinging, and then if we're clinging to the ego and clinging to pride to keep the ego going, we're really, really, really diving in there deep.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start examining, it feels like when you start examining pride, if we're in the house of mirrors, about our actions, and then we have very complicated discussions with ourselves to do simple actions. It's just, I think, trying to be aware of our pride, because it just arises until, I guess, when we're egoless. And when I find that, I'll know I don't have any more pride. But then if I say I don't have any more ego, is that prideful?
Think that.
Yeah. Also, of course, I didn't put it this way before, but of course, we always have ego, and probably in a way we always have pride. But what we do is not be attached to it. So it's because all these things are very, as it were, human, but it's. So therefore, that's why it's not the thought that matters, it's the action that matters.
And that's really what's meant by the self dropping away and us no longer, the self is always there. It's just we don't attach to it the way that we once did. It's not that it suddenly poof doesn't exist.
No, we don't.
We're not clinging to it constantly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it would seem that at least it seems to me, and the experiences I've had, that almost no one ever completely loses that clinging or complete attachment, but rather it's periods of it, and then the residual understanding, having seen it before, like Jane's talked about, if you've never been up in an airplane before and you go up in the airplane and suddenly you see the world in a different place, when you're down in the airplane, you're no longer there, but you still have the concept of what it was, right? Mm-hmm. So we're never really stripping it away. We're just experiencing moments of being without it, and then.
Well, I think actually we actually read about this last night. Because it's when Huineng was talking about the three bodies of Buddha, the Dharmakaya, Samogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, he said that, to my surprise, he said that the Samogakaya, which is the Bodhisattva also, although it's this confusion because of what's called Buddha, but anyway, the Bodhisattva feels, goes both ways. But I think when you finally drop off body and mind of self and other, then I think you do. I think it's more than just sometimes without it, sometimes with it.
So it is possible to drop it away.
Yeah, you drop away any attachment to it, which ends up being the same thing. Because a thought could come up, but that doesn't. A thought of self could come up, but that doesn't mean you're going to be proud about it, because it's the pride about it that is kind of is confusing.
The clinging part.
Yeah, that's the clinging part, right?
Well, sometimes I clean up, a mess, and then I feel really proud about that. And I got this mess done, or I did really hard job to make this thing right, and so I have this little thing that pops up in me when I'm just doing things. It's not like I'm really actually, I just solved all world hunger. It's just these small. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But nevertheless, 30 blows.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. I'll be right there. Just a minute here. Yeah. Anyway, in the intermediate period in the practice, which is the Bodhisattva a part of it, from samsara to bodhisattva to Buddha, uh, as though we were ever going to be Buddhas. So, but every time I'm still the same, Mark, but every time I feel that, this is kind of compared to you, kind of not quite right here. But anyway, and forgetting about what you said, anytime that I do feel that, I feel a little dirty.
Really?
Yeah,
You mean when you're prideful?
yeah, yeah. And for no, I mean, I never thought about it before, but I say, oh, that's, I do, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you do something nice for Jane, and it makes Jane feel good, it makes you feel good. Yes.
But it's not pride, though. That's
What is that?
that's more the Bodhisattva
Sympathetic
thing.
joy.
Sympathetic joy. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Now, what about sympathetic pride?
More blows. Other shot.
Well, let Hank have
Heck,
that
man.
conversation.
Out of you, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
Heck,
That's a
Matt.
lot of blows.
Heck, Matt.
Sure, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt conversation.
No, that's
No, no, it's,
of course not. Go
Come
ahead.
into the conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking too. So I work with children as like a therapist, and a lot of times we do reflect on like positive praise, and we're proud of their accomplishments, kind of like building itself almost. And like I don't know, I wondered if I don't know developmentally even like at a point like do you build a self before you can like realize there's no self kind of thing? I don't just curious if you had thoughts on that, but because we do use a lot of praise and being proud of
No,
accomplishments,
I
but
understand. Yeah, and it's although when I was a kid, that understanding of things didn't actually exist in the same way. But that's neither here nor there actually. Um, you know, I think when you get to be an adult and mature, then you have to deal with these things that we use for training people. You know,
or even
as
for adults, I think, yeah, if they've had trauma
yeah,
or
so it really isn't. This is not relevant for kids. No, no, and
yeah, or
particularly some kids are very. I mean, I was kind of insecure, and for people like that, it's good to tell them not to be insecure. And if you call it pride, well, that could be correct. But really, it's not to be insecure.
okay, or
Would be
even
my
for
feeling.
adults, yeah,
So what you're teaching is correct.
okay.
Is my feeling. Is my feeling. Yeah, Chris, don't change it.
Just
Making kids
it seems
feel
like
themselves is
pride.
good.
What?
Oh,
Again,
it seems
Chris.
like okay. It seems like pride refers to various things. Um, like there's pride in the sense of Mark was saying you clean up your house or whatever, and there's a sense of accomplishment or satisfaction. Uh, and then there's also pride where you're just like it's the self-aggrandizing kind. And I think both of them maintain and sometimes even feed the delusion of a separate self. Um, but Heckmet's thing about like childhood development sort of made me think more of what I was already thinking of when you sort of brought up like gay pride. Like there's the conventional world, and in that conventional world, there's healthy pride is good because we're not always walking through like I am not a separate self, the whole car thing. And I think there's something to be said for having a healthy ego, but that isn't compatible with Zen concentration or the sort of attempt to realize Buddhist truth. But that's the thing, is we're not trying to do that all the time. We're definitely not trying to impose that on children. And when we're doing Zen practice, it's important to realize that it's the attachment to this that's the problem, that this is an illusion, etc. But then once it's time to engage with the world, well, then we sort of put the Zen part aside and engage with this delusion in a healthy way.
Can I say something?
Jane wants to say something apparently.
I'd like to answer that, Chris. I think that if you don't have a strong and healthy ego, you don't really understand yourself at first. But you can't live with that because that's finally a delusion. It's something we've created, but it has to be strong enough and healthy enough to understand it in order to give it up. You can't give up what you don't actually have, and if you think you have an ego, but you've just subverted it into something else, you've hidden it or pushed it down, then that's not an ego that you can give up, because that's why I think gay pride and black pride is an example of an ego which has been hidden. And so you have to bring that ego out fully into the surface, into the front, and look at it carefully. But you can't do that unless you bring all of it up and look at all of it. And you can't give any of it away until you've looked at all of it. That's why the Dogen saying of to study Buddhism is to study yourself. And I think that's the prime part of that saying, is to look at that for a long time and not to jump into getting rid of it quickly, because you can't get rid of it if it's like all hidden in different parts of your body and self. So you have to bring every ounce of it out into the open and look at it carefully before you can even think of giving it up. That's what I think. So that would not apply to children, because children don't even know what their ego is yet.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sure.
I think in those instances, pride is being used as a way to enhance confidence and strength from oppression, bullying. It's
Yeah,
the same with
yes.
children as well, to find self-worth in who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very helpful, it's a very healthy manifestation of pride. So all pride isn't bad, I would
No.
say.
Well, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's confusing.
Yes.
It covers something that's true, and that is an empty self. And so if you want to have pride in yourself, that's fine. There's really nothing wrong with that in that sense. But it's, like I said, you can't give up what is hidden in all parts of your mental state, your emotions and stuff. You really have to bring every thread of it out into the open and look at it before you can even think of giving it up.
Yes, you have to make a nice big display of it right in front of your face so you can know where your pride lies.
Exactly.
Where you have to take it apart and take your ego
And you
apart a little
have
bit.
to, first of all,
Yes.
bring it all out into the open, and secondly, accept every part of it. Really accept it. Not only accept it, embrace it. Learn to love yourself just as you are, without having any pride in yourself, without anything. Just learn to love yourself exactly as you are, with all your hang-ups, with everything. Things that make you embarrassed, things that make you proud, all that you have to fully recognize it, embrace it, and love it finally, before you can give it up, or release it, I should say.
Yes, you can release it then, and then you really stand on your own feet.
Yeah, and then you recognize that it was a creation of your bigger self.
Yeah, when you get to a point where you are adult and mature, then some of us say to ourselves, is this all there is? Or there's something wrong, there's something not quite right, because for everybody there's something not quite right. But Buddhism is a very strong and fierce solution to that problem. In which you do give up things, looks like you give them up, but once again you give up attachment. You don't give things up, you give up attachment to things.
Yeah, you release it, so that you, as a big self and a small self, can begin to really grow.
Let's go back to here.
Oh yeah,
John,
hands up.
yeah. Sandy?
Ladies first.
Oh,
Oh. Who? Which one of us?
You, lady.
Oh, okay. Um,
Two ladies have their hands up.
About the same age,
What-
too.
yeah. What Heckmetz talked about, praising children um,
Yeah.
and maybe not just children, but adults as well. Uh, to me, that's loving kindness that you're giving people. And it's the same as if you walk down the street and you smile at someone and they smile back, and um, you get a feeling of, you've connected and it's a warm feeling. That's loving kindness to me. And that's how we all should live. And saying something to someone that might build their confidence, or when they're little, um, I think if it's done in the right way, it shouldn't have any real lasting effects. If it's put in the right context, it's. I don't think praising someone, say in school, a teacher praising a student, saying, you've really improved, what da 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 da, is anything that's actually negative. Those are just part of life. We try to accomplish things, and sometimes we need to know that we are actually accomplishing something. So,
Also, when you're praising someone, and you're trying to make them feel better and say something good about them, that's not pride. Of course,
No.
there's no connection at all.
Right.
Because you're right.
That's
It's
true.
right. It is being help. It is being. You're trying to be helpful. You're trying to be.
Right. It's a selfless thing you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
trying.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're trying to nurture another person.
Yeah. That's the way it ought to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
That's right.
That it is. Yeah. Okay, Rachel.
Where'd Rachel go? Oh, there she is.
In terms of art, painting or writing, there's always a sense of discrimination. I mean, I don't care where you are, there's going to be discrimination between the final product, even the process. And even in medicine, I've read some memoirs of doctors and scientists. And what can be fascinating is there are some, not many, but who, how can I put it, have a sense of pride in terms of it's sort of being suffused with appreciation for what has been created. In other words, kind of pride that something so magnificent could be there. It's like discovering something like a therapy or an immune therapy. The amazement that conditions have come together so that this has happened, including art or writing. And there are some practitioners of whatever art who don't attach to having created it. They were part of it, but they genuinely feel there was something much greater producing it. They certainly had the pen and they certainly produced it in a sense, but you don't have that sense of conceit. But there is an acknowledgement that there's a difference between one painting and the other painting. I mean, there is. I mean, and I'm thinking of Japanese art as well. But it's so inspiring, really, when the person steps away, as in the Middle Ages, was content to be anonymous. But I'm pretty sure took pride in in the flying buttresses. And I just think that's interesting because there is some pride. It's like really in awe of what has been done. But it's kind of tricky.
I think, Rachel, in that case, the pride that you feel in something, a work well done, is a temporary thing. It comes and goes. It's a fleeting example of feeling it, but not necessarily being attached to it for a long time, letting it go.
Can I say
Uh,
something?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not. Oh, real fast. I feel pride's a really kind of confusing word, because I think what Rachel is really talking about is like this artistic feeling of integration, where your personality, your thoughts, your emotions, everything comes and it's integrated at the end of this particular process. And there's no pride in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like later, well, I did that.
Yeah, right,
That's
right,
the pride
yeah,
part.
yeah.
But that only comes and goes briefly.
Yeah, it's everyone forgot all about it, so it's kind of
I want to tell you one thing that happened to me when I had my show over at CSUN. It was the master show finally, and I had worked like 2 months solid, without having a life at all. And I stood there looking. I was standing there looking in the door and thinking, that was a job well done. I'm thinking that to myself. I wasn't saying it out loud or anything, but I was thinking that. And a woman came over and stood in the doorway and looked at everything, and she said, I don't know, any child could have done that.
that is so funny.
So I think we don't have to worry about some angel came down and looked and said, that won't do.
Yes, it's like having your statue pulled down by the populace.
But it was really funny. I mean, she just said that like I agreed with her, and then she left.
Delivery was solid, wasn't it? Just
I
right
was like
there.
splashing me with cold water, and I woke up, yeah.
John?
I just wanted to say that we should remember that the dropping away of self and our work to try and not be attached to it is tied directly to we're trying to relieve suffering from ourselves and from others.
Yes.
And we're doing the work to do that with intent. A child is not working to do that with any kind of intent. And so all you're doing when you're helping that child to feel better is you're relieving suffering. Mm-hmm. That's our job in the world as bodhisattvas, is to relieve suffering. Mm-hmm. And you're not in any way, shape, or form harming that child by relieving its suffering, mm-hmm. by showing it some sense of pride, mm-hmm. counteracting what it doesn't understand is itself eating this child away with anxieties of the world and things it shouldn't have to deal with, but does because of the self. And so because that child can't work on it, you're working on it for them, with them, and helping to relieve their suffering. That's the way I look at it.
Nice.
I agree with that. Yeah. But I was just telling my experience to show that I think our Buddha nature will never let us get lost in it for long.
No.
I think it will always be there tapping on the shoulder saying, whoa, hold just a minute here. So I don't think we have to worry about being lost in it for long, unless we get really upset.
You could have gotten a bit of attachment to that moment, but
it was too funny, it was too, I would have laughed, except that I couldn't because she was serious.
Chris?
Just a thought that, like, in a lot of these discussions where we're talking about, like, how to cultivate certain, attributes, we always immediately think of other people. In this case, children, or other scenarios, and it's like the whole point of these talks is to turn any lesson that you're trying to teach us onto ourselves and to use it in our own practice of ourselves. Karma's a big one. As we look at other people, like, karma's going to get that person. No.
That's true, Chris.
This talk is for our benefit to use in our practice to cultivate our Buddha nature, and definitely just I'm telling on myself, but I need to remember not to, and I'm kind of doing it now, not to immediately sort of like judge other people's practices and just analyze how others might be doing it wrong, so to speak. Sorry.
Oh, that's a good point. Very good point.
There is no wrong way to practice, Chris. There is no wrong way to sit. Just leave it at that.
We don't have to worry. Somebody will tap us on the shoulder
Somebody will tap you on the shoulder.
somewhere.
Cindy, is your hand up for a reason? You just lifted it up, right? I'm sorry, are you talking now?
Now I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
When, let's see, Rachel brought up artwork and writing and, all types of the arts. What I see is that it's not so much prideful, but when a lot of times when I finish a painting, I don't know how other people feel, but sometimes I look at something that I've done and I think, my goodness, it's a sense of almost creation. This came out of me, and it's a sense of kind of, oh wow, I didn't realize this was there inside of me. Especially when I do things that are more abstract than realistic. And by having that sense, it's not so much prideful, but it's more like an awe, saying, what the human body can do. We can create things, and it's beautiful. So it's not so much prideful. I think it's just a sense of wonder that what people can create. And your creations are beautiful, Jane. And no little kid could do that.
I don't know. I wasn't so sure when she said it.
You know, it's also beautiful. We're near
time.
the end of
Time,
actually
yes.
over a little bit.
The time is ending, yes. We are done for, I think. Okay, buddy.